Hey everybody, it's Chop here at 69 South. We have gathered quite the following of new and faithful listeners. In fact, we're in 72 countries and 1,600 cities. It excites the shit out of us, to be honest. We have countless downloads and streams. If you're a small business starting out or an accomplished business looking for some good advertisement, shoot us an email at 69southpodcast@gmail.com. The 6 and the 9 are numbers, southpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. We will send you a advertisement package. Welcome everyone to Podcast 69 South, where we cuss and discuss true crime, cold cases, current events, and hot topics, along with our state of society today. This is your trigger warning. Our podcast content is produced for adult listeners 18 years of age and older. We discuss situations that may be offensive and triggering to some listeners. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
This week is National Police Week. It is a week set aside to honor those in law enforcement who died in the line of duty. Today, Kentucky State Police paid tribute to Trooper Johnny Edrington, who died during a routine traffic stop. And as Miranda Combs tells us, after more than 20 years, police and Edrington's family are still searching for answers.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of 69 South. It's good to be back, and I'm your host, Chop, and with me always is my beautiful co-host, Julie. How are you doing today?
I'm amazing, and I'd like to thank all of our new Patreon members, Hillary, Joanne, Christy, Alan, Ryan, Chad, Brittany, and Bailey. Thank you all for supporting 69 South, and we appreciate you so much.
So we've been working on this case for some time, and we finally got to tell y'all about the life and service of Kentucky State Trooper Johnny Edrington. On September 7th, 1954, John and Patty Edrington welcomed their baby boy into this world. At the time, we were talking about the post-World War II baby boom. The United States was in the midst of a significant social change. There was all kind of shit going on in the country. Public schools in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, Maryland, they started their racial integration for the first time, allowing black and white students to attend class together.
Along with, the Cold War anxiety. I mean, that was still at the top of everyone's thoughts daily, as Russia had just shot down a U.S. Neptune bomber off the coast of Siberia, which heightened the U.S.-Soviet tensions. I always heard my grandparents talk about, that era, but I just couldn't imagine walking around worrying about war happening each day.
Right, so the news, back then you only had a couple of TV stations, and the news is what it was. So all this national news, this story probably wasn't as big as it should have been. But let's get into it. We're going to drag as much of this up as we can and see if we can't help anybody, come to light about it. Johnny Edrington was pretty much a hometown boy from Campbellville, Kentucky. He was active in local community service, including Campbellsville-Taylor County Rescue Squad and the Campbellsville-Taylor Fire Department. After school, he attended Elizabethtown Community College, furthering his education and laying down the groundwork for his career in law enforcement. He also served in the Army as an MP, military police, also highlighting with his law enforcement career. Before joining the KSP, he served as an officer at Campbellsville PD and Taylor County Metro Police, all from the area in which he grew up in. And it looked like to me he was building his foundational experience in, public safety and being a law enforcement officer, like he was born to do it.
He really wanted to help people.
Johnny had long admired the KSP and viewed joining the troopers as part of his lifelong and personal dream. After he graduated the KSP Academy in 1985, he was assigned to Post 11 in London, Kentucky. He earned commendations like a Merit Service Award for apprehending an armed fugitive in 1987. So everything seemed to be going good for Johnny about this time, but to get a full, good picture of the story we're going to tell you, let's look into what his entire life and his social life and his home life and everything was going on at this time of the story.
Yeah, before we get into his work life and what happened while he was on duty.
Johnny was fresh into a new marriage. He married Diane House June 3rd, 1988. That kind of strengthened his ties to the community around there. So it
Absolutely.
was a fresh marriage. These people were, they just got together, married for 6 months. Also, they had just found out they were expecting a child. This was a first for both of them.
I think she found out 5 months from the day that they were married. So it happened all really fast. They were still in the honeymoon stage of their relationship, definitely.
Absolutely still in the honeymoon phase of their relationship. I mean, everything seemed to be going good. They had a little apartment. He was a Kentucky State Trooper, which, it's a very credible job.
Prestigious type of job.
Absolutely.
And you have everybody in the community kind of looking up to you.
Yeah, everybody's looking up to you. Like, little kids look at state troopers with their uniforms and their cop cars. And I mean, it's just when you're a little kid, you look at the state trooper, man, it's like, damn, that's cool. I want to be a state trooper. So he was living out his dream.
So on December 20th, 1988, Johnny had switched shifts with a coworker because he needed the previous day off to celebrate his father's birthday. So he wasn't even supposed to be working the night. Well, anyway, he was scheduled to get off work around 12 a.m. Around 11 p.m., right before his shift ended, he had stopped by the KSP London post and spoke with a female dispatcher on duty. Then he left the post to finish out his shift on Kentucky State Highway 80 running the radar.
Around 1 a.m. at the KSP Post 11, dispatcher noticed that Johnny's time card had not been punched out. So he attempted to get Johnny E. on the radio, and to no avail, he couldn't reach him. So the dispatcher radioed 4 other troopers and told them he couldn't reach Johnny Edrington on the radio and that he didn't come back to punch out his time card and that he was missing.
Now, at this time in 1988 in London, Kentucky, there was approximately 4,000 people. They had 4 main highways, I-75, US 25, Kentucky 80, and then Kentucky 9006. So 4 troopers went out to look for Johnny Edrington. None of those troopers could find him until 2:40 a.m. by Trooper Beatty that had come from Pulaski County. Trooper Beatty located Johnny's deceased body about 7 to 8 miles west of London on Kentucky State Highway 80. Upon finding Johnny's body, he radioed dispatch, and then several troopers showed up on the scene. The investigation into the death of Johnny Edrington begins.
I kind of get the impression as we was researching this, like the troopers didn't have to go all the way back to the post to clock out. I think they would actually radio and let them know that they were done with their shift, and then they would clock the trooper out. That
sounds reasonable, right?
Several witnesses came forward, and they started to build a timeline. He was seen last at the post around 11:05 speaking with the dispatcher. He left and was seen in the parking lot of his apartment building by a London City police officer. This officer stated that he seen Johnny E. leaving the parking lot headed towards Kentucky 80 on the 192 bypass around 11:15 p.m. After he leaves town, he goes out of his honey hole on Kentucky 80 where he sits to run radar. And what we mean by his honey hole is it was a good straight stretch where guaranteed you're going to catch somebody speeding. You know what I mean? Like a good honey hole to fish.
Like fishing.
Right?
You're
going to catch some fish. Well, Johnny E. was out there in his honey hole catching speeders. And we know this because he pulls over an individual driving a Trans Am / Camaro style sports car, and he gives him a verbal warning on his speed. When that stop is over, about 11:30 p.m., a truck driver for Super Service Trucking gave a statement on 12/21/88 that he had kind of witnessed him pulling over the Firebird Camaro type car. And when that stop was over, he said that the trooper, Johnny Edrington, had pulled behind his semi-truck, and he knew that Johnny had been running his radar because the trucker had a radar detector, and it was going on and off. And it's called swelching. What that is the radar detector was going bleep, 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 and then it would shut off because the trooper would like trick people coming down the road. He would turn his radar on and off to.
So their radar detector wouldn't catch him trying to catch them.
That's good to know. I didn't know that you could do that.
I didn't either.
He said that the trooper had got back into his car, made a U-turn, and got in behind him and followed him for a short while westbound. The trooper then passed him and was driving ahead of him for a short while until a light-colored Ford pickup truck came speeding by the trooper and the truck driver. This was between 11:30 and 11:45 p.m. The truck driver said that the truck was going about 70 miles per hour for his best guess. His eyewitness account, he said Trooper Edrington pulled over to the side of the road, let him pass, and then he made a U-turn and went back after the truck. So from the point he starts to go after them until the time he gets them pulled over is approximately 2 miles, which would be consistent on where they ended up finding the cruiser.
And that in the report that we read, it also stated that when Trooper Edrington went to go turn around and like gun it, go fast to go after this vehicle, that he hadn't turned his blue service light on. I guess their lights are different down there. They don't have red and blues in Kentucky. They only have their blue light, and he hadn't turned it on yet.
They don't have blueberries and cherries. They just got the blueberries.
Right.
Several eyewitnesses say they passed the cruiser and saw all of the lights on. The blue light, the spotlight, and the takedown light were all on, but these people did not see anyone inside or outside of the car. So by eyewitness accounts, we can assume this happened between 11:30 and 11:40 p.m., and that's pretty much all the eyewitness accounts until Trooper Beatty finds Johnny Edrington on the side of the roadway, approximately 18 foot in front of his cruiser, shot to death with his own service revolver, shot right between the eyes.
And he was found at 2:40 a.m., which was an hour and 40 minutes after they really started looking for him.
That's one thing that struck me funny in this case is how you have these four main highways. A trooper or a city cop, a London city cop, saw him in London at his apartment. The dispatcher knew that he was getting ready to be off his shift. They radio for other troopers to go out and look for this missing police officer. And it's how long before they actually find him?
Well, they started looking around 1 a.m., and so that's an hour and 40 minutes. And he was located, just outside of town. I'm telling you, 7-8 minutes right outside of town on a major highway. Or a pretty busy highway for that area.
Right. We don't know what the other troopers were doing. We don't really know the aspects of the area of the town. But in my mind, I would think, hey, there's a trooper missing, has been missing for a little bit of time. And he was last seen right in London, Kentucky, right by his home. You think they would start from the post and work their way out.
Like the officer who had seen him, why didn't he radio and say, oh, I just seen him. He was headed towards the 192 bypass to get on 80. That's the way he was going. And then why wouldn't they send somebody out there?
Right. And logically,
immediately,
you think the trooper's going to finish up his shift, go to his honey hole, write a few more tickets, go home to his new bride and expecting mother of his child. He was, couldn't wait to get home to his wife.
After working, what are they, 12-hour shifts or something like that?
I believe so.
But yeah, on their radios, is the state police on one channel and then the local police on another channel? Can they cross talk and stuff like that?
I'm sure the state police had their own channel when they wanted to talk, just to the other troopers, but I'm sure they were monitoring. The London City Police was monitoring the state police just so they could all be in sync. You would think they had a main channel.
In case they needed each other.
Absolutely.
Right. So I find it odd that it took him so long to find him when he was just not even 10 minutes out of town. So that truck driver had seen a light-colored pickup truck. And it was also noted in some of these reports that there was a Ford truck that was stolen the previous evening from McAlpin Motors after closing time. Now, that vehicle has never been recovered, but if Johnny E. had turned around there to go after this truck, it would have been consistent with the approximate place that Trooper Edrington had been shot.
That is interesting about the stolen truck deal. That sounds very plausible with what happened. So the troopers start to roll in on this crime scene. You have a trooper shot right between the eyes with his own service revolver. Let's talk about what the scene looked like when the troopers started arriving there. So Trooper
Beatty was the one who found him, and he went back to his vehicle and called dispatch and let him know, hey, I found him. He's down. Send everybody.
They found him laying approximately 18 foot in front of his car, and he was laying there's like a little hillside right there on the side of the highway. He was laying
like a
with
culvert.
Exactly. His head was laying downhill. So you have to imagine his head was at the bottom of the hill and his feet were like going up in the air towards the hill.
Like right off the shoulder of the road.
Right. So you can picture that in your head. Also, Johnny Edrington was right-handed. They found his .357 Magnum in his open left hand, which was kind of weird to me. So at the beginning of this investigation...
That's what they're seeing.
Yes, they're seeing that, and they're all saying it's a homicide on paper. And then we move to what opened up this whole can of worms.
Which is the book. Time.
Right.
And now... This is the only unsolved homicide of a Kentucky State Police trooper in Kentucky history. More recently, former Kentucky State Police the London Post, former commander, retired Doug Asher, has came out with a book called Harlan County Sun. Now, this book chronicles the life and times of Doug Asher, and in his book, he wrote a chapter called The Big Gray Cover-Up. In this chapter of his book, he infers that the actual cause of Johnny Edrington's death was a suicide, not a homicide. So 35 plus years later, after the death, he comes out to share his thoughts. He states that the Kentucky State Police covered up Johnny's death so that his family could benefit from the insurance policies for an on-duty death, along with keeping the community from thinking that a trooper could possibly commit suicide.
I can see all that. I mean, from start to finish, you got a trooper just married, has a child on the way, finishing up his shift. He literally just celebrated his father's birthday the day before. Everything seems to be going normal. And then they find him shot to death on the side of the road.
That strikes me as very odd.
It is very odd. And they said all his lights was on. You would think if like Doug Asher comes out 35 years later and now he wants to say it's a suicide.
We'll be right back.
Discover Rosie Posey's farm stand at 6082 East Hadley Road in Mooresville, Indiana, home of the sourdough bagel bombs. Crafted with love, these bagel bombs burst with flavors like Asiago cheese, jalapeno pepper, blueberries and cream, and everything bagel. Their artesian sourdough loaves come in classic, chocolate chip, jalapeno cheddar, and garlic parmesan, just to name a few, and they are pure perfection and the best in the area. If you're craving some sweets, they have homemade cookie sandwiches and cookie dough and s'mores flavors delight. Grab a farm fresh flower bouquet from the iconic pink roadside stand and go follow Rosie Posey's farm stand on Facebook for daily menu items and availability. Visit Rosie Posey's for an unforgettable taste experience at 6082 East Hadley Road. He said it was a suicide then, but his bosses wouldn't let him come out and say any different, is what I summed it up to be.
I could kind of see the troopers doing that for a fellow trooper's family. I mean, he had a new wife, baby on the way.
It's plausible.
It is plausible. It's very plausible. What's not plausible is all the other aspects that we're going to get into. Now, this chapter in this book has definitely got the community talking. YouTubers Fred and Sheila McCoy covered this case extensively. They even had former KSP troopers Jimmy and Johnny Phelps meet them at the scene of where the crime had occurred, along with some very informative phone calls. The great thing about this is that retired detective Johnny Phelps and retired trooper Jimmy Phelps arrived at the scene to share their insights because they worked the case back in 1988. For many years, the Phelps brothers have said that rumors were started about them being involved with Johnny Edrington's death because of a lot of the members of the community disliked them because they were making a lot of people angry with doing their jobs. During this time in London, there were several investigations going on tackling the bootlegging and marijuana industries, multiple raids on people's homes going on for several years. So we can definitely see how rumors would get started about it.
Absolutely. You're not going to say nothing good about a police officer or an investigator that's kicking in your door and taking 100 cases of booze or seizing your money or
taking
anything
you away
like
from
that.
your family for, selling a little bit of weed. But there was a lot of shit going on in London, Kentucky. I mean, it was a pretty much small town.
I was surprised when I pulled up, all the newspaper articles about all the stuff that was going on down there. It was wild. It was like the wild, wild west.
It sure was. I'm talking about with all the drug bust and the bootlegging bust and the money seizures and
the murders.
The murders were going on. And for a town as small as, 4,000 people in London, Kentucky at the time.
Yeah, I think in between 4 and 5.
The troopers definitely aren't making any friends raiding people's homes and locking them up.
So you got to take these rumors that you hear about them kind of with a grain of salt.
Everybody makes up rumors about police officers. I mean, especially if you don't like them.
I have to say I believe that to be true.
A couple things did strike me odd when they did the phone interview with Jimmy Phelps. He was adamant that Johnny's death was a suicide. He stated several things that we wanted to verify. He stated Johnny E. committed suicide because he let his finances get to him. He was supposed to be getting evicted. He actually said that his phone had been disconnected, and we know that that's not the truth because they had called his wife to
let her know about the death. Yeah, that was an odd claim.
He had also stated that Edrington was going to have to park his cruiser because he had let his insurance lapse 3 to 4 months is what the exact statement was. And we was wondering about that too, because there is a clause that was a long time ago made up in Kentucky that, and probably every state, that the state maintained the vehicles and maintained the car insurance. We kind of dug a little bit about that, and the insurance policy that he supposedly let lapse was a rider policy, and it was you could have it or you didn't have to have it. It wasn't.
It was optional. Not required.
It was just extra insurance for in case you had somebody riding with you or something like that. So it was hard for me to kind of a stretch to say that he would have had to park his cruiser because he didn't have that.
We found out that KRS 16.075 is the Kentucky state law that covers automobile liability insurance for Kentucky state troopers. This was enacted in 1962 and last amended in 2010. It requires the department to either directly secure or reimburse troopers for purchasing liability insurance and uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage on their personal vehicles. This protection applies specifically with troopers or when they are conducting official business. This law ensures troopers have adequate protection beyond standard state vehicle policies, focusing on personal liability and exposure during work. In this conversation about the insurance, Phelps stated that this was a rider policy. This rider policy was not a requirement. It was just offered as additional protection to the officers. Now, also, I cannot see the Kentucky state government letting a trooper's insurance lapse for 3 to 4 months and still have him in an uninsured vehicle while on duty due to the liability laws.
Right. That would just be a big mess if they were, they just let the troopers carry insurance on a state vehicle. That part didn't make any sense to me.
Now, also, they had very high standards. Like, you had to be, not only have honesty and integrity, but you had to be fiscally responsible, very responsible. You couldn't have, lapsed insurance or taxes or anything like that.
Basically, to be a Kentucky State Trooper, you had to have good ethics all around the board, on or off duty. And the insurance thing, why we think it's so weird is just for the simple fact that Kentucky State Troopers in a Kentucky State car would be liable for anybody they hit, and it would be a big mess if the trooper himself didn't pay the insurance and was wrecking to somebody. That means the state would get sued. So Kentucky's not going to have a big mess like that. They're just going to insure all their vehicles and their troopers, and that's period. Also, it was also stated in Fred and Sheila's interview with Mr. Phelps that Johnny Edrington was $25,000 in back taxes to the government. For one, Kentucky State Troopers didn't make a whole lot of money. The taxes, state and federal, were taken out of their paychecks. We had a chance to look at one of Johnny Edrington's paychecks. And according to the paycheck stubs, it looked like Johnny Edrington was making somewhere between $15,000 and $18,000 a year gross.
Dependent on overtime and things of that nature.
Absolutely. They were taking his health insurance out. They were taking state taxes out. They were taking federal taxes out. But you got to figure if somebody's only making $15,000 to $18,000 a year, plus he's married, so that's a dependent, plus himself, how many years would you have to work to owe $25,000 in back taxes? That's back then, that's a huge leap to me. He only brought home around $500, and that's for a 2-week pay period.
And when you think of it right now, you're like, man, that was nothing. But back then, that was pretty good money. I mean, what other types of stuff was taken out of his check? Because that's like $300.
We'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, this is Chop from 69 South, man. While we're taking a little break, get up, get yourself something to drink, grab yourself a plate of food. But hey, look up shopcitadjules.com, man. Pick up one of our badass 69 South t-shirts. A portion of the proceeds goes to victims, and it helps support our show. Help keep the lights on here in the studio. We thank you all so much for listening. Everybody, just take it easy and enjoy life. That's what it's all about. You have Social Security getting taken out. Like I said, health insurance. You have life insurance policy that was taken out. And there's also a spot on the paycheck stub. There was a spot for court order deductions, and it said $0 taken out. So you think if he would have owed $25,000 in back support, then there would have been some kind of court order where they'd have been taking a little bit at a time out of there.
Yeah, I think you meant taxes.
Yeah. We actually had run across a article
about a trooper that had owed some back taxes. Okay, so I'm going to read this article to you. It says in 1988, there was a Kentucky State police trooper that was involved in an internal disciplinary matter for failing to pay his state income taxes. According to archived KSP records and news reports from that era, this trooper owed approximately only $1,200 in back taxes. Now, this had came to light during an audit by the Kentucky Department of Revenue, which had notified the KSP of the delinquency. So what was happened, in the initial notification and investigation, the Department of Revenue issued multiple notices to this trooper demanding the payments plus interest. And then because they didn't respond, on March 15th, 1988, this trooper was suspended without pay for 30 days because he hadn't paid his taxes. Now, Even the commissioner at the time had stated that this case exemplified the department's zero tolerance for ethical lapses, especially among troopers sworn to enforce the law. So that, to me, made me think that they take that situation really serious.
Right. And just to put it in perspective, folks, $1,200 in 1988 would be about the equivalent of $3,400 in today's money. So you're talking about
A little bit of
over
change.
Yeah, a little bit over, kind of about 2.5 times your money.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, the $25,000 that was insinuated that Johnny Edrington owned would be roughly $60,000 to $75,000 in back taxes in today's loot. Yeah. So with all that being said, you have the car insurance deal, which we both, kind of thought was weird. Then you have the back taxes story, which kind of sounds outrageous. $25,000 is a whole hell of a lot of money to be behind on your taxes, to be such a young man and not to be making that much money at all. But we don't know where the Phelps brothers got this information. They could have got this information from somebody that
a trusted source.
Right. We're not sure. We're just trying to look at the facts and trying to bring light to this case because the family really wants to know, because it's kind of putting Johnny Edrington's whole
legacy in a bad light.
Thank you for saying it. I was trying to figure out the best way to say it. But yeah, it's kind of making him look bad. I mean, a lot of people look at suicide as taking, the weak way out.
Or the easy way out.
The easy way out. And there's a lot of aspects of this case that doesn't really point to suicide to me. Another thing is you have the .357 Magnum that's located in his left hand.
That just has blowed your mind the whole time.
It does, because I've shot a .357 Magnum before, and it jumps out of your hand. I've seen a lot of people shoot them, and it's just the kickback of these guns, man. If you're not holding a gun like that really tight, gripped, it's going to jump out of your hand. It was also said in one of the interviews that they had thought that Johnny Edrington had held the .357 Magnum in his left hand, stuck it up to his forehead, and pulled the trigger with his right thumb. That means that there was no grip on the trigger guard to hold the gun steady, like if you were shooting it in front of you, like the normal way to shoot a gun is.
Yeah, but they were holding the gun facing. He was holding the gun facing them with
backwards.
His left hand backwards, and then used his other hand to.
That's a pretty wild claim in my eyes. I'm just saying.
Right, and if he was going to commit suicide, it's just strange to me that all the lights and stuff were on like that.
Some people's theory who are claiming that it was a suicide were saying that he had all his lights on and that he did the funky maneuver with his left hand and the thumb to try to make it look more like a homicide. They also said that his uniform wasn't messed up. Actually, it was said that his gig line, which is the straight line of the whole uniform, the zipper, your buttons, was in a perfect position. There was no scuffs on his shoes or his clothes. It didn't look like there was a struggle. But if he went to such great lengths to make this look like a homicide, you'd think he would have rolled around on the ground a little bit, you know what I mean, to kind of scuff his stuff up. There was also reports, in the police reports I read, that the hood ornament on the LTD or Crown Vic that he was driving was folded back. There was also some scuff marks on the hood that looked like there was a struggle. There was a fiber found somewhere on the front of the car.
The bumper.
There was a fingerprint found, which the fingerprint didn't really carry much weight to me because anybody could have left a fingerprint back there. I don't think they ever ran the fingerprint or figured out who the fingerprint or where it came from, but that was kind of odd to me as well.
Another thing that I thought was odd, that it said his back seat was like moved 6 inches forward. And back in those times, in those vehicles, I think we discussed that it would have to be unbolted from the ground or from the bottom of the car.
Yeah, I looked that up, and it said from wear and tear on these old Crown Vics, the back seat would become loose and you could actually move it. I don't know. I found that odd too. I've owned a lot of old pieces of shit, and the old back seat was never unbolted to where it could be, moved forward or back. Or do you think the police cruisers especially for a liability of a prisoner or somebody they had pulled over and detained. The back seat wouldn't be able to move 6 inches because that'd be kind of dangerous in my eyes.
Yeah, that'd be a major liability if somebody got hurt or smashed their finger, broke a hand, or I mean, you name it.
I mean, you hit the brakes and you're handcuffed in the back of the car and the seat's unbolted to where to move 6 inches forward or 6 inches backward. You think it would throw somebody around. I mean, we were never state troopers. We were never Kentucky, police officers or anything like that. Some of this stuff could be factual, like the back seat and everything. Mm-hmm. We're just looking at it from a normal person's perspective and trying to use a little bit of common sense here.
A lay person. That's what they call us.
Layman's terms. I mean, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's look at the people who could have had a motive, like a premeditated.
And with a Kentucky State Trooper, there's a lot of motives there. I mean, there's each person, that they've potentially arrested, pulled over. I mean, and then you got their family members, maybe if they're enraged or infuriated. So, I mean, the possibilities endless.
I mean, Johnny Edrington was freshly married, expecting his first child, but there was a little bit of a past there. He had recently been divorced from a woman he'd been married to for
5-6 years.
5-6 years. They never had children.
No, and it was very recent. It happened very quickly. In April of 1988, he had filed for divorce from his first wife, and then by June of 1988, he was already remarried. I don't think they were expecting yet, but by November of 1988, they knew that they were expecting, and then come December, Johnny dies.
You can't help but think that would piss a woman off.
Absolutely. Yes, it would.
Definitely be a scorned woman if you had, let's just put it out there, Johnny Edrington was a good-looking young man. He had essentially had everything going for him, a state trooper, good-looking, and then, bam, you lost him to another woman.
Well, even after, they had to relocate for him to get this job. So they moved 2 hours away from their friends and their family, and they were just getting comfortable, settling in about their third year there, I'm guessing. And then he hits her with he wants a divorce, and then immediately gets remarried to somebody else. I mean, I couldn't imagine.
That'd scorn any woman.
Absolutely it would.
Let's talk about another aspect of this. Around this time, there was a man named Robert Foley. He was convicted of a murder in Ohio, I believe it was, and he had somehow got involved in with an FBI agent and got his parole worked out. Well, around the same time that Johnny Edrington was killed, Robert Foley was living 2 miles from where Johnny Edrington was shot.
And he was working with the FBI as an informant, I believe?
Yes. He also, he was convicted of, he committed 4 murders, and then he killed 2 brothers.
6 people altogether. Yeah, a serial killer.
Yeah, and this dude not only killed them, but he stuck them in a septic tank to hide the bodies. So this dude was pretty vicious.
I haven't got to dig into all the stuff he's done, but I've just learned about him through looking at this case and stuff like that. But he seemed ruthless.
According to the Phelps brothers, that this Mr. Foley was a liar and a piece of shit and a murderer. This dude's still alive. He has made some claims that one of his buddies had told him that he could kill Johnny Edrington for a favor for another officer. That was Bob Foley's statement. A matter of fact, here's an article that was wrote about Bob Foley in this whole situation.
Yeah, and I think he changes his story here and there, a little bit this way, a little bit that way. But this article says, police say they have little faith in Foley. Police say they have no faith in 7-time convicted murderer Robert Foley, that they would probably not even question a man Foley claims confessed to a 1988 slaying of state trooper Johnny Edrington. Now, during an interview last week at the Laurel County Detention Center, Foley said that he told KSP about Trooper Johnny Edrington's alleged killer during a lie detector test, and he claims that he passed. He said, "I felt kind of like the state police would have looked more deeply into it," said Foley, 37, who was scheduled to be sentenced today for a 1989 quadruple murder. But officials say they've looked as deeply as they need to. A lot of his statements were found to be self-serving. State Police Captain William Stewart, who was the lead investigator in the Edrington slaying, said Tuesday of Foley's information. Stewart, who is now commander of the Harlem Post, said he's followed some pretty remote leads in Edrington's killing, but he acknowledged Tuesday that this man, whose name is being withheld because he is not a suspect, has never even been sought for questioning in this case. He wasn't remotely even a suspect, said Stewart, who cannot talk too freely of the Edrington case because it remains open. The time frame's not correct on when the man was supposed to be in town. Stewart said he cannot discuss his reasons for not believing Foley except to say he has good ones. "I know why he made the statements about Edrington," he said. "Anything he says has no credibility at all." Much of the skepticism about Foley's tip seems to be circumstances in which he gave it. The tip came during an investigation of a killing at Foley's home, which he said was committed by the very man who supposedly confessed to killing Edrington. Edrington was shot to death on December 20th of 1988 with his own service revolver, and then it just goes in to tell about his death and where his body was found. Now, Foley was questioned the day after Edrington's shooting because he was on parole for a 1976 murder in Harlan County. Foley said Friday at the jail that 3 men were at his home outside London in the hours before officials believe Edrington was killed. The summer after the shooting, Foley said the men returned, and that's how he got the alleged confession. Foley, his blue eyes staring straight ahead, said he told the 3 that it was a good thing they didn't show back up at my house the next morning because of the inquiry. He said one of the men replied that it would be a hell of a thing for you to be charged with something you didn't do. When Foley pressed the man, he said he confessed that he killed Edrington as a favor to a friend. Foley said he didn't think too much of this revelation because this man was not always completely truthful. But Foley said something that happened the following year practically convinced him this was Edrington's killer. Foley told state police that the 3 men showed up at his house in October of 1990 and tried to kill him. Foley was stabbed in the abdomen, and David Gross, an acquaintance, was shot to death. Before the struggle, Foley said the killer said they were going to leave me just like they did Johnny Edrington. Foley said that statement convinced me more strongly that this man killed Edrington. The man whom Foley described as a Florida resident who passed through Kentucky on drug business has never been located. Stewart said he was wanted for questioning in another case but would likely not be questioned about Edrington if he ever turned up. Major Doug Asher, who was London Post commander when Edrington was killed, said it was important to note that Gross was an eyewitness to a quadruple murder for which Foley is now being sentenced. I'm sure probably now he's just grasping at straws to show he's some kind of value to another investigation to keep him off of death row because he's throwing at breadcrumbs to us. But I don't think that's the case. Besides the 1976 case and the 4 current murder convictions, Foley was convicted last year of the August 1991 shooting deaths of 2 Laurel County brothers, and that he was sentenced to death for that cause. So no wonder they're not taking what he's got to say too seriously. But I think they should still dig as deep as they can.
Absolutely, they should. They should dig that hole as deep as it went for him. I mean, you got this, let's just say the serial killer lives 2 miles from the crime scene. Then you have the stolen truck that was stolen and theoretically could have been headed that way around the time that Johnny Edrington was killed.
Yeah, it makes me believe more that it could have been Bob Bowley, too, besides the people that he's saying.
Or somebody that he knew. Or he could have just been trying to throw the shade on somebody else, trying to protect himself.
Finesse the police to get the heat off of him.
That's right. There's several things in this case that just blows my mind. One thing that I can't get out of my head is obviously the pistol and the way it was found. Mm-hmm. Another thing I can't get out of my head is the way his body was positioned on the hill, like we had said before. His head was facing downhill. I mean, I've never wanted to commit suicide, but if you go on and look at all the people that have committed suicide, and the normality of the cases is they don't shoot themselves usually in between the eyes, for one, and for two, they're usually in like a comfortable position when they do it. Like you wouldn't want to lay down with your head at the bottom of a hill and then shoot yourself with that, at that magnitude.
It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't click right in my head.
Through the videos we've watched and information we've taken in, we've seen a few different theories, that believe it's homicide. But then you have the, one of the, I'm going to say medical examiners maybe, or something like that. They said that, back in the day, they were 50-50, but they didn't say nothing. They just went with homicide. But then they came out years later stating that they believed it was a suicide. Huntsinger, I believe, was his name. And then you have Vincent DeMaio, which is a world-renowned forensic pathologist and expert on gunshot wounds.
Yeah, if you haven't heard of Vincent DeMaio, he studied cases and gave his theories on cases like Lee Harvey Oswald, the Phil Spector investigation. He also gave his expert opinion in Vincent Van Gogh. Yeah, Vincent Van Gogh.
He completed over 9,000 autopsies in his career, and also in the Phil Spector murder trial of Lana Clarkson, he found that Lana Clarkson's death was a suicide and not a murder. And then he was the George Zimmerman. I think that's where Trayvon Martin got murdered, and he testified there or reviewed the evidence.
Vincent DeMaio said in his mind, in his investigation, he went through everything. He said in his mind it was a homicide, for sure.
That's what his report said, that it was absolutely a homicide.
It was also stated, I believe it was by Jimmy Phelps, that they had basically asked Vincent DeMaio to, hey, this is a fellow officer. Look, we wanted to keep it a homicide, so let's just say it's a homicide so, the family can get paid and all that stuff. I don't think a man with the integrity of Vincent DeMaio would risk his whole reputation and his intelligence as an investigation in the spectrum that he does.
Yeah, I think he reviewed it years later.
It was years later, but still, the simple fact that he's not gonna destroy his credibility by giving a bullshit statement from his perspective and point of view.
Right. And then you have, the Kentucky State Police, they won't let anybody see the file or check out the file. That's kind of weird, but I get it's an open investigation, but it just makes it well, are they trying to hide or cover up a suicide?
There's also rumors that hasn't been completely exonerated, for a lack of better words, saying that his shirt that he had on is missing from the
evidence.
The evidence file, yeah.
There's just a whole lot of stuff. And when we got to looking at this case, it was never, are we going to solve who did it? It was just for us to come to our opinion if it was a homicide or a suicide. And I think there's too many options open for a homicide rather than a suicide.
It just doesn't make sense in my eyes. It really doesn't. And a lot of that stems, I mean, my opinion, a lot of that stems from, why is he going to work his whole shift and then do it at the end of the shift? Nobody's seen any signs of anything, wrong with him that day, like he was in a foul mood or depressed or anything. He had had a good dinner the day before. He had went to dinner with, I believe, his new wife's parents that day.
I didn't know that. But, or just him, he was at the station standing there talking. He went back out to work. He was busy working, it seemed like, from the time that he left, the post to the time that his life ended. I mean, you have eyewitness accounts talking about they seen him pulling people over and doing his job. And if he's busy, I mean, I can't see you being busy doing work and also thinking about killing yourself in a little bit.
And as far as the Phelps brothers go, I mean, they were there at the scene. We don't know what they saw, they're police officers. One of them was a detective. For all accounts that we've heard.
I mean, they could know stuff that they're still not allowed to talk about. I'm sure, if it's still an open case or, maybe they have stuff they want to say, but that they can't say. Who knows? But we've not seen any evidence whatsoever that's involved any type of law
a motive for them at all. I mean, I don't think it's hard for me to believe that two upstanding Kentucky state troopers would put their
everything
jobs and their lives and everything on the line for, even if they did get to an argument. There was rumors that they had gotten to a little spat or something in the parking lot, or just there's all kinds of rumors. And to put another rumor to rest, you'll hear people saying, well, we know it's a fact that the Phelps brothers had another brother named Doug that ended up getting married to Johnny Edrington's widow, but it was years and years later. And
15 years.
Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with this. So, they can quit saying all that.
But yeah, I don't think that we're ever going to actually find out who did it, because people are scared down there and afraid to even talk. And, that could even fall into some of the law enforcement officers. It seemed like a pretty rough place down there at this time. I mean, a lot of stuff was going on.
Yeah, and you got to think of the Phelps brothers' position at the time, too. They were two great big twin brothers, state cops, had it all, you know what I mean, and busting drug dealers and
so nobody's going to like
moonshiners. Nobody liked them. Of course they're going to start rumors about them, and they're probably just sick and tired of hearing the same old bullshit. The Phelps brothers did this, the Phelps brothers did that. What really needs to happen is the Kentucky State Police needs to open up this case files and let everybody else check it out. Let us see the truth, because we're only seeing the side of it that we can see.
Right, and we don't know what's in that file. We don't know what evidence or photos or this and that, because there's so much more we haven't seen than what we have seen.
Jimmy Phelps is lobbying for the same thing. He's like, I wish the Kentucky State Police would open that up so everybody else can see what we saw that night.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they worry about it. It will just cause bigger problems if they bring it up and talk about it now.
I wonder if they wish that Doug Asher never wrote that book. Like, it was kind of dying down until he wrote that book, and it just opened up a hornet's nest for shit.
Yeah, and also you have to think of the state of mind that this would put his family in, to have him gone for 30-some years, and then all of a sudden it's all news that, he may have committed suicide, when no, everything's pointing. I think everything points to homicide, definitely. And I think a lot of people might know more than what they're saying, and that's because some of them may be fearful.
If you guys haven't watched Fred and Sheila Investigates, the Hatfield and McCoy's Museum YouTube channel. It's pretty good. They go through it pretty thoroughly. I think they have 5, 6, maybe even 7 episodes on it.
Oh, there's a lot. There's the phone interviews, and then there's their opinion pieces on what they think could have happened, but they're very detailed, and they answer a lot of questions and come up with a lot of questions that everybody would ask.
We've actually dealt with one of the Phelps brothers when we was on the
Doug Harless.
Yeah, and they were completely nice, wanted to give us any information that we needed. They've always been respectful to us.
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to throw shade on you guys at all. We're just stating facts and wanting to know the truth on some answers and stuff that we're confused about.
No, and I think it boils down there. There's a lot more going on underneath the surface than, the public know about. Not saying anything with the Phelps brothers. I'm just saying with the whole community in general.
I know it would be nice if they did open it up and check it out. Maybe they can do some touch DNA. I mean, I'm sure they probably don't have the hood or the door handle where the fingerprint was if the technology was like it was today. And
yeah, they could dive deeper and stuff like that.
Maybe get touch DNA on his service revolver, maybe on the snap that opened it up. It would just close a lot of doors, or maybe open some doors. But us, like everybody else, we just want the truth about everything, and we think it'd make everybody else feel better about the whole situation. The truth will set everybody free. Well, we've enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. It's pretty intriguing. Let us know what you think. And until then, we hope you have a good day, good evening,